At 70, I discovered an incredible secret that supported me more than my children ever could. It happened on a drizzly afternoon, just as the shadows of my quiet home stretched long across the living room floor. I was rummaging through the attic, searching for nothing in particular, when I stumbled upon an old trunk. My fingers trembled as I unclasped it, releasing a cloud of dust that danced in the dim light. Inside were faded photographs, brittle newspaper clippings, and letters penned in elegant, looping script, artifacts of a forgotten life. It was my grandfather's, a man whose name had only been whispered in the corners of my memory. My heart raced as I pulled out a letter, the paper yellowing like leaves in autumn. As I read his words, a torrent of lost dreams and crushed hopes flooded my mind. He had been a painter, once fervently alive in the world of color and light. He described the ache of unexpressed artistry, the longing that slowly morphed into resignation. I felt a sharp, clawing ache in my chest, a familiar loneliness creeping in again. My children, engrossed in their lives far away, barely skimmed the surface of my existence now. Could I blame them? No, I couldn't. Yet a pang of resentment twisted inside me. Was I more than just their mother or grandmother? Perhaps there was more to me, too. With each sentence I read, a spark flickered inside me, illuminating the darkness that had gathered for far too long. I hesitated, imagining braving those unrefined emotions, those years of silenced creativity. Could I dare paint again? My paintbrush trembled like I once did to stand in front of a classroom. It bore the weight of unfulfilled potential. What if my children wouldn't understand? What if they asked me to abandon this blossoming part of myself just as my grandfather had? The fear of disappointing them was a brick pressing down upon my chest, yet the thought of not trying felt worse. A quiet suffocation. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Over the following weeks, the turmoil inside me grew. I found solace in stolen moments of creativity. Raw emotions poured onto canvas. Thank God I had managed to capture these fleeting pieces of my soul. Each brushstroke became a reminder of who I was before motherhood consumed my identity. The Midwestern muse. It felt freeing. So why did I also feel like a shadow of guilt loomed over me? I shivered when I thought how my children would react, returning to me, expectant and concerned about their mother chasing whims and whimsies, barely piecing together their own lives. I could sense their disbelief pressing down on me, suffocating the space between us, stifling my vibrant voice. The moment they returned home was irreversible. All my choices weighed uncompromisingly on my heart. They would want me to prioritize them, to stay within the confines of a safe existence. But who was I? A mother, yes, but I was also so much more, an artist yearning for recognition and connection. My breath quickened, an internal battle waging fiercely. I stood at the edge of a precipice, teetering. What if I lost them? What if I lost myself? As I clutched my paintbrush, trembling above the untouched canvas, a new question settled in my gut. Would I dare to rise and embrace this chaotic conflict, or submit to a life that demanded I silence my newfound spirit? The air around me thickened, urging me to decide. The days melted into each other, marked only by the rhythm of the brush against canvas. I embraced those fleeting moments as if they were drops of sunlight breaking through the oppressive clouds of my self-doubt. Each stroke peeled back layers of years spent in silence, hiding behind familial duties and societal expectations. I began painting, not just for the sake of creation, but to reclaim the essence of a life I let slip away, often dictated by the roles assigned to me. But beneath this newfound passion simmered a well of trepidation. As the joy of painting enveloped me, the fear, too, lurked close. Fear of the inevitable confrontation when my children would return, confronting them with a self they didn't recognize. Could they comprehend this rekindled spirit? Or would I come across as an alien version of their mother, one who prioritized art over their needs? Images of their concerned faces shadowed my creativity. One Saturday evening, I planned a small gathering in the hope of easing some of that tension. My children were making the journey home for the weekend, and I could feel the anticipation electrifying the air. I wanted them to see my work, to share my journey, to eliminate the rift that had grown silently between us. I spent the day in a whirl, preparing snacks, tidying my house, but most importantly, hanging up my paintings, an exhibition of spirit and story, right within my living room. In the midst of the hustle, I felt the familiar knot of anxiety tightening around my stomach. What if they didn't understand? When they finally arrived, laughter and warmth flooded the space, enveloping me momentarily in solace. My heart raced as I directed them to the living room, suspense hanging heavy in the air. The moment of reveal felt like standing on a stage, spotlight burning bright, vulnerability laid bare. Their expressions as their eyes fell upon the canvases were an intricate mix of surprise and confusion. "Mom, you did all this?" my daughter exclaimed, her voice edged with disbelief as she stepped closer to the paintings, examining them as one would a priceless artifact. My son followed suit, his brows furrowing in thought. The critical eye of my own flesh and blood scrutinized my rebirth with apprehensive curiosity. Their reactions, though lined with love, struck a nerve. "I started painting again," I said, determination treading through my quiet voice. "It's part of who I am. I've missed it. What about your health? Your schedule?" My son's words floated through the air, probing, protective. Are these misgivings about me, or possibly their own fear of change? I felt the familiar weight of concern echoing their childhood years, the voice of nurturing control extending into adulthood. I had not anticipated this conflict. My voice fought against the tide of their well-meaning concern. "I'm still your mother. I'm just being myself, too." I didn't know whether I was reassuring them or myself. The ensuing silence thickened, and my heart raced. I realized this moment resonated far beyond mere acceptance of my art. It defined a shift in our relationship. It was an unspoken ultimatum masked beneath the remnants of familial love, to not only accept my passions, but to acknowledge that I could be more than what they had known. The tension cracked, morphing into a palpable electricity. We were standing at an intersection. Their expectations and my aspirations bore down heavily on this dialogue. Would they accept my evolution and perhaps claim their own liberation in the process? From that point in the conversation, I saw flickers of understanding in their eyes, and the burden of doubt faintly passed. Yet, deep within me, a newer concern emerged. Would they truly support me, now that I was crossing an invisible boundary toward independence? Or would I remain a prisoner of their expectations? As they shared the first tentative praises, I pondered my next step. The desire to create surged within me still, but I felt the tightening noose of external expectations loom heavier. What will tomorrow bring? The moment for me to confront the hidden truths, my fears, their fears, was fast approaching as I finally dared to, once again, embrace my reality. But as the evening drew on, another daunting thought slithered into my mind. What if I went further? What if I shared my art with the world, displaying it beyond our cozy confines? The flicker of that possibility both thrilled and terrified me. With the air thick with unspoken words, I couldn't help but wonder, was the world ready for the Midwestern muse, or had I simply awakened a dangerous dream? Each influencing force within me clamored for acknowledgement, and I was left standing at yet another precipice, this one adorned with the dazzling promise of a future beyond the family sphere, or the looming abyss of rejection. As the night unfolded, the casual chit-chat soon turned into meaningful discussions about life choices, aspirations, and what the future held for each of us. My children's acceptance stirred something deep within me, a flicker of hope, but mingled with uncertainty. Each compliment they offered felt like a fragile thread. Could this tapestry of shared admiration withstand the challenges ahead? Sitting with my children on the couch, I sought to unravel a deeper connection between us. "What do you think when you see my paintings?" I ventured, searching their expressions. "I see passion, I guess," my daughter ventured timidly, her brows still knitted in thought. "But Mom, what do you want to do with this? Where's it all headed?" The question hung, charged with implications. My heart pounded as I realized I hadn't formulated a clear answer. I wanted to dive into the art world, to explore galleries and share my work with strangers who might see something beautiful in it. But was that something my children could support? The road toward that dream seemed steep, perhaps insurmountable. "I want to start exhibiting," I replied, the sincerity in my voice surprising me. "I want to share, not just keep it here, hidden away." The admitted longing felt like an audacious proclamation. My children exchanged glances, surprise mingling with concern. "Exhibit?" my son echoed slowly, processing the weight of my words. "Mom, what if it doesn't go well? What if people don't like it?" His protective instinct danced dangerously close to the edge of my resolve, triggering insecurities I thought I'd dismantled through my art. The familiar landscape of doubt reemerged, its shadow stretching dauntingly large over my intentions. "I need to take that chance," I asserted, my voice gaining steadiness. "If I don't try, I'll always wonder what could have been. I'd very much like to be part of a bigger conversation." The silence that followed settled heavily, yet I braced myself against it, a small rebellion against my ingrained desire to please. This moment wasn't just about acceptance. It marked a pivotal challenge both for me and for them. Accepting my dreams would require a shift in their own perspectives. In that instant, the opportunity before me crystallized, a painful imperative to redefine familial love. I realized that stepping into the light of my own ambition could catalyze transformation, not just within me, but within my children as well. What if they too sought their passion alongside mine? "Mom, it's not just about acceptance," my daughter said now, her voice tinged with both caution and curiosity. "It's about what you're, willing to risk. Your well-being matters." Her concern ignited a new wave of reflection within me. I had spent my life balancing responsibilities and nurturing my family with fervor. Now, I was a tightrope walker, craving stability while pursuing an exhilarating leap into the unknown. How could I convey to them that risk became imperative in the pursuit of fulfillment? "I promise to be responsible, to consider the emotional toll," I reassured them, approaching this balance with newfound conviction. "But this life, my passions, are woven into who I am. Supporting me doesn't mean abandoning you. It means learning to embrace each other's journeys without resentment." As the conversation shifted toward future possibilities, ideas rippled in the air, igniting a burgeoning dialogue about balancing dreams and duties. We hurled opinions back and forth into uncharted territories, a metamorphosis that felt almost tangible. But even as layers of acceptance peeled away, I couldn't shake off the underlying tremor of trepidation. Would my plunge into the art world elicit pride or worry? What if I failed? The lines of our dynamics shifted, intertwining hopes and vulnerabilities that demanded fortitude from us all. The night drew closer to its end, and I felt the remnants of inhibition reemerge. As I prepared to send them home, the looming tension transformed into urgency. My art wasn't merely about recognition. It was a battle for identity and respect against a backdrop of familial attachment. In that breathless moment as they left, I sat in the dim glow of my studio, confronted by swirling thoughts. The unseen boundary had been prodded, and I questioned, what lay ahead? Would I gather my courage to approach a gallery? What if the world turned its back? As the house settled into silence, a resolute pulse quickened within me. I realized that the next step was not just about painting for myself, but claiming space in a world filled with uncharted passions. The challenge was set before me like an uncarved canvas awaiting the brush. But amidst that electric anticipation, doubt wound tightly around my thoughts. The words that broke the quietness danced in the air. What will become of the Midwestern muse once exposed to the scrutiny of the world? Would I soar or shatter? Tomorrow would bear witness to a choice steeped in uncertainty, a decision that could redefine not just my future, but the paradigm of love within our family. As my breath caught, I knew I was standing on the threshold of something profound. I had ignited the spark. Now it was time to fan the flames. Would I have the courage to forge ahead, regardless of the risks? The dawn of a new venture beckoned, haunted by the question looming between art and expectation. The dawn broke steadily, illuminating my studio with soft, golden light that felt both inviting and intimidating. I stood frozen for a moment, staring at my easel as if waiting for it to speak to me. How strange and compelling it was to feel both a sense of urgency and paralyzing doubt. The decision lay before me, yet I found myself wrestling with an internal battle as familiar as it was distressing. I busied myself with cleaning brushes, the act grounding me while my thoughts spiraled. When was the last time I had truly stepped into a space that felt purely mine? Each stroke of paint held the promise of something great. But was I ready to let the world in? Hours passed in contemplation. I weighed the options in my mind, ruminating on the conversations from the night before. My children's skepticism had been a mirror reflecting my own fears. I couldn't ignore the echoing questions. What if I failed? What if I embarrassed not just myself, but them too? Yet buried beneath those doubts, something else began to rise, an ember of determination urging me to act. It was more than just a desire to showcase my paintings. It was an opportunity to redefine not only my identity, but the narrative of motherhood as well. Could stepping into my ambition allow my children to witness the courage it takes to pursue passion? With that thought clinging firmly in my mind, my fingers trembled as I pulled out my palette, carefully squeezing vibrant tubes of color. Each hue ignited a flicker of excitement within me, and I began to paint. What emerged on the canvas was not just art. It was a declaration, a visceral testimony of years spent in the shadows, waiting for this moment. I pushed aside the nagging fears. Each brushstroke became a meditation, grounding me in the present and propelling me toward my future. As colors blended and shapes emerged, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was my story, and I owned every bit of it, including the uncertainty that lurked in the background. But along with the thrill came the recognition of a deeper truth. Could my resolve be strong enough to withstand criticism? Would vulnerability in creativity bring me the connection I longed for, or would it deepen my solitude? The thought twisted my stomach. I wrestled with my instinct to pull back, to hide behind safety and security once more. A daunting choice loomed, whether to truly embrace my identity as an artist or cling to the role I had built around their expectations. It was as if I were poised on the edge of a precipice, staring down into an abyss of doubt. My reflection broke as the doorbell rang unexpectedly, scattering my thoughts. It startled me. Who could it be? I slid open the door to find an old friend, someone who had always appreciated my art but never really understood my struggles. "Hey, I saw you posted about wanting to do a gallery show," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "We've got to talk." In an instant, I felt buoyed by her enthusiasm, yet panic gripped me at the thought of sharing my visions. As we settled into my bright studio with the untamed energy radiating from the canvases, I could not shake the weight of my revelation. It was more than a reconnection. It was a challenge. What does it mean to lay bare one's soul to the world, to seek validation in a space where risk and artistry intertwine? The stakes felt impossibly high. As we discussed plans for a potential exhibition, her encouraging words washed over me, yet still I could not ignore the growing tumult inside me, the hesitations that lingered. Would I find the confidence to take this leap, or would fear pull me back into shadows once more? With each exchange, I was reminded that this journey was not merely about showcasing my art. It was navigating complexities of my identity, choices, and roles within my family. This burgeoning opportunity felt like both liberation and intimidation, stirring the pot of fundamental values that laid at the core of who I was. The tension twisted tighter as I wondered, was I truly ready for this? Would my heart withstand exposure to the world, or would it retreat back into the cocoon of familial expectations? Let's try to figure this out together. How about a small preview party? My friend suggested. Suggestion laid like a soft weight on my chest. And there it was, the path ahead illuminated with potential, yet shadowed by pain. Would this plunge into the art world drown me in expectations? Or would it finally bring forth the authentic connection I longed for? The air buzzed with possibilities as I faced a life-altering decision, one that could unravel or solidify not only my identity, but those I cherished. As the clock ticked, the ambiguity morphed into a clarion call for growth. I was at a precipice, but through the murky waters lay clarity. Would I have the courage to embrace this new chapter? As excitement warred with anxiety within me, I felt the very essence of life unfurling. But at what cost? The battle ahead was not merely with the art world, but a confrontation with my own limitations, one that would reshape everything I believed to be true. Tomorrow would come with further urgency, more reflection, and perhaps the unveiling of something I had fought diligently to keep hidden. But the question drummed ever louder in my heart. Was I ready for this journey? The sun rose higher, flooding my studio with relentless light, the kind that demanded attention. I tossed the last of the paint-infused water into the sink, my heart racing with an electrifying mix of anticipation and dread. A small preview party, an innocent phrase born from excitement, yet it felt monumental, a potential catalyst set to alter the trajectory of my life. I could feel the lingering weight of self-doubt coiling around me, constricting like a serpent as I began mentally drafting my plan. Would I invite those closest to me? Friends, family, perhaps even the neighbors who had shown a glimmer of interest? Each name floated through my mind, stirring a blend of hope and anxiety. I questioned whether their presence would bolster my resolve or amplify my insecurities. Did I even dare to hope for their admiration? As the day unfolded, I picked at my canvas. Each brush stroke felt like therapy, and the colors bled together in a vibrant dance. Deep blue sky, rosy dawn, bursting oranges. It was a celebration of rebirth. The atmosphere shifted with my evolving mood, thoughts swirling around my mission. What if I could weave a narrative, not only of art, but of resilience, each piece reflecting my quest for authenticity? The juxtaposition of pride and vulnerability weighed heavily. Below my brushstrokes lay unspoken fears. What if they see me falter? What if I'm not enough? The haunting question echoed louder. I wiped the canvas clean of doubt and began anew, pouring every ounce of yearning into the paint. With each hued layer, I confronted the essence of my struggle, the ambivalence I felt toward my duty as a mother versus my dream as an artist. In between color mixes, I reflected on my children's skepticism. Their words played on repeat in my mind. "Mom, are you sure you want to do this?" It struck me. They were mirroring my deepest fears, reflecting a prism of doubt I had yet to confront. Did I owe it to them to step back and remain their conventional mother? Or did I owe it to myself to chase the dream that was stitched into my very being? Then it struck me. Perhaps this exhibition wasn't merely about unveiling my art. It was a gateway. If I succeeded, It would bear witness to the courage it takes to explore one's identity amid uncertainty. I envisioned the day they'd stand before my canvas, eyes wide with understanding. My mom, the artist. What a profound lesson that would be. As evening approached, I found myself seated on the studio floor, surrounded by the very pieces that spoke to every fiber of my being. My friend's suggestion lingered. A preview party. It was more than just an event. It was a litmus test for my growth. I plucked the courage within and decided to reach out. A few friends, maybe even a vibrant artist or two I had befriended. But do they truly see me? I closed my eyes, trying to visualize each face. Would they recognize the struggles underlying my creations, or simply admire the aesthetics? It was a thrilling thought mixed with terror, yet I couldn't shake off the burgeoning excitement. That excitement morphed into action, and as I began listing down invitations, the rush surged through me. The exhilaration of possibility danced alongside the fear of rejection. With every name I enclosed in my digital invite list, I felt a tethering to my aspirations. This was not just a superficial gathering, it was my ascension into authenticity, a declaration that my art deserved its space in the world. As I pressed send, a mix of liberation and hesitance flooded my core. Could I truly face the gathering storm of emotions that would accompany this? What if I was judged? What if they didn't get me? But in that moment, a different thought emerged, fierce as the paint splatters on my canvas. What if they did? What if this was the first step in rewriting my narrative, not just for me but for them, my children, my friends, and ultimately, myself? The clock was ticking down to an unfamiliar horizon. I had made my choice. The time had come to face the world. As I awaited the inevitable repercussions of my decision, a gnawing realization took hold. Perhaps the greatest art I had yet to create was the one revealing who I truly was beneath the roles I played. Just then, another notification pinged my phone, a reminder of the impending preview party. You're invited to witness my journey. And it dawned on me. The exhibition was as much about them as it was about me. Maybe, just maybe, my concord with their expectations could blur with my artistic ambition. But as butterflies fluttered in my stomach, uncertainty wrestled with hope. Would my truth be met with acceptance or skepticism? Would this endeavor uphold my victories or shatter them beneath judgment? Unsure yet determined, I took a deep breath as dawn approached again, reshaping my resolve. I had ignited my journey, and now I stood bewildered at a crossroads, yearning to explore who else lies hidden within the canvas of my soul. But what else might I discover on this convoluted path of self-revelation? Dawn filtered through the studio's windows, painting a soft halo around the remnants of yesterday's chaos. The interior felt alive, buzzing with an energy that seemed to propel me forward as I perched on the edge of my stool, examining the raw essence of the world outside. Today, the digital clock glared the countdown to my preview party, a stark reminder of the hurdles I had yet to face. I closed my eyes, letting my mind wander back over the last few days. I had poured everything into my preparations, childhood memories tucked into the corners of each piece, fears woven into the strokes of the smallest details. The art, now chaotic yet deliberate, was designed to narrate my journey of ascent from domesticity to authenticity. In the solitude of my studio, I confronted an unsettling realization. I was transforming fear into fuel. No longer was I just the mother at the confines of domestic bliss. I was becoming the artist who dared to claim my space. Yet, a flicker of apprehension tugged at my gut, threatening to unravel my resolve. The very act of showcasing my art became synonymous with bearing my soul. I reached for a piece I had entitled Unraveled Threads, an abstract representation of the facade I wore for so long. Each layer of paint told stories of unspoken struggles, from sleepless nights nursing infants to sacrifices of artistic endeavors for school plays. This canvas was more than paint. It was my metamorphosis, an artistic embodiment of everything I feared yet finally confronted. But was I truly ready to showcase it? What if my vulnerabilities were met with disdain? As I dipped my brush into the paint, a wave of emotion surged. Would those who came to witness perceive this as mere art or understand the layers of doubt it represented? Just then, the door creaked open, startling me from my whirlwind of self-doubt. My daughter, Mia, strolled in, her face illuminating with an innocent curiosity. "Mom, can I help?" Her presence threw open a door I hadn't considered. My children, the very ones I felt conflicted about while pursuing my artistic aspirations, were also a part of my journey. The delicate balance of motherhood and artistry wasn't a dichotomy, but a synthesis. Every triumph in my art echoed my desire not just for personal fulfillment, but also to show them the importance of striving for one's passions, even amidst the chaos of parenthood. With renewed focus, I set Mia to work next to me. Together, we chose colors and spoke openly about each piece, her youthful enthusiasm mingling with my wisdom. I shared my sketch narratives, the weight of fear lifting slightly with each revelation. "Mama, this one looks like you're flying." Her comment struck a chord deep within. This artistic flight exemplified my aspirations, the whimsical yet grounded representation of who I had been and who I was becoming. In that very moment, I realized Mia's enthusiasm had ignited another facet of my journey, the importance of legacy, not solely as a mother, but as a woman. With every brushstroke that day, I felt the tapestry of creations expand. Each canvas began to draw nearer to a portrait of mutual understanding between artist and observer. There was beauty in revealing these layers and inviting others, especially my children, into the complexity of my truth. My vulnerability could nurture their strength rather than diminish it. As the shadows grew longer, I reflected on this new dynamic. My art had become a bridge, connecting not just my past to my present, but also inviting those closest to me into my world. I mused over how I could intertwine my artistic expression with lessons of resilience and authenticity for my children. Nevertheless, the shadow of doubt lingered, reminding me that the preview party was still ahead. Would my vision be recognized? The act of creation had served as therapy, and now it transformed into a test of acceptance. Would this fusion of my passions speak louder than my fears? Would they rise to meet me as I stood vulnerable, awaiting their judgment? And just as I secured the next protective layer over my canvas, a quirk of fate unfolded. My phone buzzed yet again. I glanced at the screen and felt my heart stop momentarily. A message from one of my invited friends read, "Can't wait to see your art, but I have to bring someone special." Who could it be? My mind raced. Would this newcomer amplify my nervous energy or lend much-needed support? I took a deep breath, navigating through my thoughts. It was an invitation to another layer of vulnerability, the chance to confront more than just my fears of judgment, but also to embrace the unknown, a new journey interwoven into the fabric of my upcoming revelation. I inhaled deeply, steadying myself. After all, the moment of truth was drawing near, wherein art could transcend self and ignite connections. The clock's relentless ticking echoed in my mind, each second drumming a rhythm that intensified my anxious thoughts. Adrenaline coursed through me, a potent mix of excitement and dread as I glanced at the canvas hanging before me. Unraveled threads seemed heavier than before, as if it had absorbed all my fears and hopes. I stood, brush in hand, contemplating the layers that stretched beyond mere paint, a reflection of what I had surmounted and what still loomed ahead. Art had been my refuge, yet as the day of unveiling approached, I realized it was also a mirror, reflecting the dichotomy of aspirations and fears. Mia's laughter floated through the studio as I watched her twirl with abandon. In contrast to the weight I wrestled with, her youthful spirit reminded me of the joy I once felt while creating. Would she understand the gravity of vulnerability? Could she sense that each stroke was a part of my metamorphosis? As her delighted giggles echoed like a soothing balm, I allowed a soft smile to break through my mask of apprehension. But the clock's countdown pressed on. Anxiety tightened its grip as images of the preview party loomed larger in my thoughts. It wasn't just about the art. It was about who I was becoming. Would I be seen merely as Mia's mom on a date with creativity, or as a bold artist unraveling her truth? A plan formed within me, a way to transform this looming fear into a powerful narrative I could control. I scrolled through my contacts and sent a quick message to a trusted friend, Riley, with whom I had shared my journey over countless cups of coffee. "Can you come early and help set up? I need some moral support." Almost instantly, an enthusiastic reply came back. "Wouldn't miss it for the world. Let's conquer this together." The idea of Riley's presence solidified a flicker of confidence within me. Having someone to walk beside me through this unveiling felt like armor against the rustle of judgmental whispers I feared. The thought of having someone in my corner was invigorating. It transformed my internal landscape from a cavernous echo of self-doubt into a vibrant arena where I could truly flourish. Yet the doorbell ringing captured my attention, shattering my momentary calm. I opened the door to find Mia bouncing on her toes, disguised as a miniature version of myself. "Look, Mom, I'm your biggest fan." Beaming up at me, she held a small painted canvas that somehow mirrored my vibrant strokes, but with the innocence of a child's touch. In that luminous moment, clarity washed over me like the strokes of paint on my canvas. This wasn't just about my vulnerability or what others thought. It was an opportunity to redefine the legacy I would leave for Mia. My art was no longer isolated. It was an invitation to conversation, communion, shared stories wrapped in vulnerability. Perhaps my journey could inspire her to find her own voice, unearthing creativity without fear of judgment. I took the child-sized canvas she offered, the bright colors radiating optimism. "Mia, this is beautiful. It captures our journey perfectly." At that moment, I understood that we were co-creators in this vast tapestry of life, and our individual struggles could inspire resilience in each other. As the sun dipped lower, painting shadows across the floor, I prepared both my studio and myself for the unveiling. I focused on breathing, grounding my swirling thoughts. The phone buzzed yet again, and I found myself staring at another message from Riley. "Hey, about that special guest I mentioned. It's a surprise." I paused. Who could this surprise be? Would they further undermine my fragile confidence or support the unveiling of my spirit? With this additional layer of uncertainty, the anticipation escalated once more, causing my pulse to quicken. It was a revelation. I was standing at the precipice of not just revealing my art, but laying bare my essence. The time had come to face my fears head-on and to trust in the connections I had cultivated through vulnerability. Tomorrow, at the preview party, I would either find acceptance or taste the bitterness of rejection. Whatever awaited, I steeled myself to embrace it all. But the specter of doubt whispered once more. Would my creations inspire, or would they be met with cold indifference? As my heart hammered in my chest, uncertainty settled over me like a shroud, challenging me to rise above the impending judgment. With trepidation, I reflected that each brushstroke brought me closer to confronting my deepest fears, lest they unravel my path one more time. Would I emerge stronger, or would the shadows of my self-doubt swallow me whole? The night deepened, and beneath the weight of expectation, I realized one thing. The moment of truth was drawing near, and I would soon find out exactly who would stand by me when the time for revelation arrived. As dawn broke, a fragile light filled the studio, illuminating the canvas that had become both my sanctuary and battleground. The morning sun painted the room with gold, and a sense of urgency washed over me. It was unveiling day. Today, I would face not only an audience, but my own doubts and fears laid bare. I moved through my routine with a mechanical precision. I replaced my apprehension with action, arranging the pieces that would showcase my growth and transformative journey. Each canvas hung like a testament to resilience, a chronicle of emotion captured in hues and forms. I could hear Riley's voice in my mind, urging me to let go of the weight of expectation, to embrace the artistic liberation I craved. "Find your truth," I whispered to myself as I added the final touches to my presentation. The words served as a mantra, reminding me that this moment wasn't solely about acceptance. It was about authenticity, about revealing the layers that made me, me. With each stroke, I envisioned those who would stand before my work. Would they see the intricacies that connected my past and present? Would they grasp the journey distilled into these emotional archives? I questioned every intention behind my brush. Could I convey the profound realizations that had been sculpted in silence over countless sleepless nights? The studio door swung open to reveal Mia and Riley, bright-eyed and bubbling with enthusiasm. In her hands, Mia carried 2 small flower pots, each adorned with a clumsily painted heart in vibrant red. "These are for good luck, Mom," she chirped, her innocence shining through like a beacon cutting through my anxiety. Riley set to work, unraveling a banner that read, "Art Unleashed," in bold, cheerful letters, while I knelt beside my daughter. "Thank you, darling. You're my lucky charm," I said, humorously quelling the rising tide of fear with a smile. Beneath my facade of cheer, an undercurrent of doubt roiled. Was I truly ready to share the rawness of my heart, or would the room's silence echo my vulnerabilities back at me as rejection? I confronted the paralyzing thought, what if no one cares? As if reading my mind, Riley approached, her eyes narrowing in gentle scrutiny. "Remember, it's not about them. It's about you. You are worthy of this moment." Her confidence was infectious, igniting a spark of rebellion against the darker voices clamoring in my mind. But a distinct apprehension sat stubbornly in my gut. I wondered who Riley's special guest could be. Did they hold some power over my self-perception? Would they alter my fragile composure? Each "what if" morphed into elephantine shades of doubt. I couldn't let this person dictate the narrative I had carefully crafted. Once everything was set, the door opened and a wave of chatter washed over us like a tide. Curious faces appeared, lit by a blend of excitement and anticipation. My heart raced. The moment was upon us. Had I prepared enough? People flowed into the studio, and I soon floated between familiarity and unease. I offered polite smiles, reciting quick hellos, but my mind spiraled inwards. As they approached my canvases, did they feel the essence that had driven my hands? Or were they merely observing, detached? Then, through the shifting crowd, a figure emerged, Catherine, a former mentor whose critiques had shaped my early artistic endeavors. Just the sight of her sent a jolt of anxiety through me. I had long wished to discard her lingering judgment from my psyche. Would she recognize the growth or merely recall the inadequacies? "Your work has evolved tremendously," she remarked, her voice smooth, yet edged with an authority that ignited both admiration and fear. "Thank you," I replied, the words barely escaping as if caught in a tightening throat. In that pregnant pause, I realized I needed to confront not just my art, but the remnants of my past that clung to my artistic journey. Each canvas was a challenge to her influence as much as it was to my own insecurities. As conversations buzzed around me and attention drew towards my creations, I dared to embrace my truth. It was not just the art that hung there. It was a reflection of my painstakingly woven identity. Could this be the defining moment for my personal redemption? Before I could dwell too long in uncertainty, the door swung open again. A new face slipped into the studio, an ex-colleague from my past, someone who had a profound influence on my career trajectory. My heart dropped into my stomach, heavy with the weight of unfulfilled expectations. In that exhilarating chaos, I sensed the undeniable question emerging within me. Would I rise above my history, or would I let it tether me down like an anchor? Those thoughts rattled through my mind as the crowd gathered, eyes filled with anticipation, holding their collective breaths for the artist, me, to reveal the unvarnished truth. The murmurs of the crowd enveloped me, creating an atmosphere heavy with expectation. My throat constricted as I caught sight of familiar faces mingling with strangers, each gaze assessing, judging, dissecting. I wondered whether they could feel the throbbing pulse of my insecurities or if they saw past them to the canvas, a map of my journey, rich with tribulations and triumphs. Mia and Riley flanked me, their presence both a comfort and a source of pressure. I felt weighed down by the unspoken desire for their pride, a fierce need to prove myself not only to them but to the artists I admired, the colleagues who had seen me falter, and the critics who had dismissed my work too easily in the past. As each observer began to lean in, taking in the details, the brush strokes, the colors bleeding into one another, I fought against the rising tide of self-doubt. Would they appreciate the emotional intricacies woven into each piece? Did I create art that transcended mere aesthetics and tapped into something deeply human? I absorbed the reactions, soft gasps, murmurs of interest. But one voice cut through the clamor, sharp and clear. It belonged to my ex-colleague, David, his presence as imposing as ever. He stepped forward, his penetrating gaze scanning the canvas, and a lump formed in my throat. Memories of our professional rivalry flickered across my mind, each instance more humiliating than the last. I had long viewed him as an epitome of everything I feared I might never attain: success, recognition, artistic validation. "Your color choices are bold. That's unexpected for you," he commented, a thinly veiled critique laced with a hint of smugness. A knot twisted in my stomach. "Well, I've learned to embrace risk," I countered, forcing conviction into my tone. "It's a necessary part of growth." With that, I sought out Riley's eyes and found their unwavering support. In that flicker of connection, I realized that my true artistic evolution wasn't based on the opinions of others, no matter how influential they had once been. It was rooted in my ability to confront my past mistakes and channel them into something beautiful and honest. Catherine reappeared, her demeanor softening as she approached my artwork again. "You've taken ownership of your narrative," she observed, her tone now laced with genuine admiration. "That's the essence of art, to show the transformation and not just the final product." Something inside me began to unravel. The tight grip of performance anxiety loosened ever so slightly. Was this my moment of revelation? The point at which my narrative shifted from insecurity to assertion? Yet, with all the enthusiasm brewing around me, I sensed an underlying fear that my journey wasn't wholly clear to those observing. Would they grasp the full extent of my sacrifices and struggles? As I took a step back to observe the crowd, an unexpected thought struck me. Fear didn't need to hold me captive anymore. I reflected upon everything that had brought me to this point. The nights spent wrestling with my canvas, the silent debates with myself about worthiness, and the quiet but fierce determination to break free from the narratives that confined me. I could feel a shift within me, a burgeoning sense of empowerment. The canvases were not merely pieces of art. They were battle scars and trophies of a journey filled with complexity. I was no longer negotiating my identity against external expectations. I was fiercely owning it. Then, just as I dared to sink deeper into this revelation, a different figure stepped forth from the throng, a close friend who had witnessed my wins and failures in equal measure. Their eyes held a question, the kind that seemed to pry past the facade I'd taken shelter behind. With every heartbeat, I realized the stakes of this moment were higher than I had anticipated. Would I allow the past to stifle me, or would I let it fuel a new chapter of my artistic voice? The weight of my history was heavy, yet here I stood on the precipice of choice. The next moment would define not just my art, but my relationship with my past. Did I have the courage to leap into the unknown? As the crowd leaned in, the air thick with anticipation, my heart raced. I was at the edge, ready to confront the truth, not only in my work, but in my life. What awaited me on the other side of that leap was uncharted territory. But one thing was clear. It was time to reclaim my narrative. As the final moments of the unveiling drew near, I felt an electrifying pulse reverberate through the air, mixing with both anxiety and exhilaration. Each individual surrounding me represented a thread woven into my narrative, and now it was about to reach its climax. Confidence emerged from the depths of vulnerability as I positioned myself at the forefront of the conversation, ready to confront whatever awaited me. I took a deep breath, the air thick with anticipation as I approached my larger canvas titled Unraveled Threads. This piece was the keystone of my exhibition, a synthesis of my journey, a testament to the fears I had faced, the courage I discovered, and the quiet awakening of my artistry. I glanced at my daughter Mia, who stood beside Riley, their eyes sparkling with pride, a reflection of the unyielding support I could now claim. It was time to redefine my identity, not just as their mother, but as the Midwestern Muse, a title I had once hesitated to embrace. As I began to articulate the story behind Unraveled Threads, I noticed the crowd leaning in closer, drawn by my words. This painting represents the complexity of our experiences, the sacrifices made, fears confronted, and dreams rekindled, I explained, my voice steadying as empowerment surged through me. Each brushstroke had been an exploration, a reclaiming of my identity that transcended motherhood. Remarkably, as I spoke, the knot that had often tied itself tightly around my throat began to loosen. My confidence solidified, and I realized that vulnerability, rather than a weakness, had become my strength. The crowd, once intimidating, now felt like a harbor of understanding, ready to receive my truth. Their expressions morphed from tentative curiosity to genuine engagement, reflecting an empathy that transcended the mere act of viewing art. So much of my life was spent in the shadows of my responsibilities, diminished by the expectations of others, I continued, looking at familiar faces interspersed among the crowd. But I discovered that embracing my passions doesn't take away from my role as a mother. It enhances it. Allowing myself to create has taught me the importance of cultivating one's own aspirations alongside nurturing familial love. The murmurs of approval rippled through the room, and I could feel the weight of my fears lift like the sun's rays breaking through storm clouds. As Mia stepped forward, her small frame, adorned with unbounded spirit, stood as a remarkable contrast against the artful backdrop. "Mom, you're an amazing artist," she chimed in, her innocent admiration unfurling like the flowers in front of her. Suddenly, I was swept up in a tide of acceptance, a wave of understanding washing over not just my audience, but myself. Each individual, from Catherine to David, reflected what I had been trying so hard to define, an evolving identity, anchored in courage and artistry. I no longer existed only in the periphery of their expectations, but had carved a vibrant niche where I could thrive. Striking a balance between familial responsibilities and personal aspirations wasn't just possible, it was essential. As applause erupted, a sound resonating through every fiber of my being, I took a moment to absorb the environment around me. The acceptance and awe amalgamated in every listener's gaze felt like a chorus echoing affirmation. The synthesis of who I was and who I aspired to be was finally harmonizing. Later that evening, as my friends celebrated my boldness, something shifted within me. I had time to reflect on every intricate layer of the day's experiences. I felt an unprecedented wave of pride wash over me. I had confronted my fears head-on, demonstrating depth and passion in my creations. Seated together with Mia and Riley, I knew this was a defining moment, not merely for my art, but for my identity. My role as a mother was interwoven with my rebirth as an artist, each strand enhancing the other. My journey had come full circle, becoming both a catalyst for growth and a vital connection to my children. The contrast from where I'd started, lost amidst expectation and fear, was stark. No longer was I the shadow of my past, nor a prisoner of my responsibilities. I stood empowered, embraced by those who mattered most. Finally, as the night deepened, I made a vow to carry this newfound strength into every aspect of my life. I had given life to my passions, conquered my fears, and risen to a challenge most would shy away from. I embraced this new chapter, a reflection of resilience nestled beautifully within the essence of my creations. The stage was set not just for showcasing art, but for continuing the narrative of my life, a tale ignited by creativity, underpinned by love, and propelled by an unwavering spirit. The future stretched before me vast and promising, inviting me to explore uncharted territories, a canvas yet to be painted, waiting for my brush to create strokes of genius. And as the night faded into dawn, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment burgeoning within me. I had accomplished what I had set out to do. I reignited the artist within, woven it seamlessly with the essence of motherhood, and ultimately I had proven that the pursuit of one's dreams transforms not just the self, but echoes through every relationship cherished. Now, an invitation. If you found connection in this story of personal transformation, you need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional narratives. Your support matters. Leave a like today to help the algorithm convey these important stories. I encourage you to comment below with your reactions and theories. What does this transformation inspire in you? And please, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who can benefit from this journey of self-discovery and artistic liberation. Your engagement can be the push someone else needs to ignite their own passions.